This is the reason why 80% of relationships fail. Introduction. The critical truth behind relationships that don't last. How many of us have been in a relationship that seemed promising, full of potential and passion, but ended abruptly or silently? The frustration of seeing a relationship you believe to be perfect fall apart can be hard to understand. What happened? Why did it fail? These questions don't arise without reason. In a recent study, Esther Perel, a renowned couples psychotherapist, reveals that the vast majority of relationships fail due to emotional mistakes and misunderstood dynamics between partners. She points to the 4 biggest causes of relationship failure and explains how these failures often start silently and gradually before becoming irresolvable. In this video, we will deep dive into the psychological and emotional dynamics behind relationships that fail. The intention isn't just to diagnose the problems, but also to propose practical and real solutions for anyone who wants to transform their relationship and avoid the most common mistakes. This content will help you understand the deeper causes of relationship problems and how to avoid them, so you can create a stronger, more connected, and more lasting relationship. The 4 biggest causes for relationship failure. 1. Indifference and disconnection. The emotional poison that kills relationships. Indifference is the biggest silent killer of any relationship. What starts with small communication failures, like forgetting to ask about the other person's day or failing to offer a kind word, can over time turn into a total emotional disconnection. Indifference is not just a loss of interest. It's the absence of commitment and empathy for your partner, which weakens the roots of the relationship. How indifference creates emotional distance. Human beings, especially in romantic relationships, need to feel they are worthwhile to the other person. When this feeling is lost, whether through neglect or simply ceasing to care, a void begins to form between the two. When one of the partners no longer feels valued or noticed, this feeling of emotional devaluation dissolves the connection. This doesn't happen overnight, but in small moments, forgetting important dates, a lack of interest in daily conversations, and the absence of touches or affectionate gestures. How to combat indifference and rebuild emotional connection to avoid emotional indifference. The relationship must be fed with attention and intention. Every small interaction should be seen as an opportunity to strengthen the emotional connection. Open communication is essential. It's necessary for both partners to share their emotions and feelings honestly. Constant care, which includes words of affirmation, affectionate gestures, and genuine interest in the other's life, is what keeps the relationship alive. However, it's necessary to be aware that when indifference sets in, rebuilding it requires mutual effort where both sides need to be sincere in their intentions and open to dialogue. 2. Neglect and complacency. When a relationship becomes automatic. Neglect in relationships is the lack of continuous effort to feed and nurture the relationship. In many cases, the relationship becomes routine, where partners stop taking care of themselves, connecting, and even caring about each other's emotional needs. The big mistake here is thinking that a relationship can be self-propelled after a certain point, as if it were already sealed after the commitment. Emotional complacency is a dangerous trap because it sets in when both people's expectations are no longer being met, but they still maintain a routine of interaction purely out of habit. How to avoid neglect and keep the relationship alive. Avoiding neglect requires constant care and dedication. Couples who don't make an effort to maintain novelty in their relationship begin to drift apart. Making surprises, introducing new activities together, and always striving to improve the relationship are ways to combat complacency. Furthermore, continuous commitment shouldn't just be for the big day, like a wedding, but for every day lived together. Love needs to be nurtured every day, and mutual effort is what keeps the flame alive. 3. Verbal and emotional violence. The disrespect that corrupts the soul. Verbal and emotional violence is perhaps the most destructive and invisible form of violence in relationships. Words, when used aggressively or derogatorily, can cause emotional damage as deep as any physical injury. Constant criticism, shouting, disrespectful words, or passive aggressiveness create a toxic environment in which respect and trust are destroyed. Disrespect, whether through insults or cold attitudes, can corrode any relationship from the inside out. The importance of respect. How to rebuild harmony. To rebuild a relationship that has suffered from emotional violence, it's necessary for partners to commit to maintaining mutual respect. This means avoiding cruel words or aggressive attitudes and instead seeking more constructive forms of communication. Respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and without it, no matter how much a couple tries to stay together, it will be unsustainable. 4. Contempt and disdain. The sign that the end is near. Contempt is the most destructive form of a relationship. When one partner begins to treat the other with cruel indifference as if they were less important, this is a sign that the relationship has reached its breaking point. Contempt manifests in words and gestures that show total devaluation of the other person. This is often more harmful than any physical aggression because it kills the other's self-esteem and makes them feel irrelevant. This behavior is a reflection of the emotional end of the relationship. How to avoid contempt and rebuild dignity in the relationship. To avoid contempt, partners must recognize their own emotional responsibility. Disrespect should never be tolerated, and when someone starts to show contempt, it's crucial to establish clear boundaries. Respectful dialogue and the recognition of the partner's emotional importance are fundamental to restoring trust. The sexual revolution and the challenge of maintaining desire. Desire in long-term relationships is one of the greatest modern difficulties. The sexual revolution of the last 60 years, driven by contraception and social changes, has profoundly altered the dynamic between couples. However, this desire is not a given. Over time, desire can be lost, especially if emotional excitement and romance are absent. The key to keeping desire alive. Sexual desire is intimately linked to curiosity and vitality within a relationship. When both partners continue to cultivate their own passions, interests, and individual energies, it keeps the relationship vibrant and stimulating. The key to maintaining desire is the continuous effort to bring freshness to the relationship, whether through new experiences, open communication, or even small surprises in daily life. How to keep your relationship alive, healthy, and lasting. Relationships are not self-propelled. They require constant work, dedication, and above all, emotional self-sufficiency to survive over time. Open communication, empathy, mutual respect, and continuous effort are the foundation for keeping any relationship solid. Love is more than a simple feeling of attraction. It is a constant choice, and every day you decide whether you will continue to invest in the relationship or let it fall apart. Subscribe to our channel to learn more about how to strengthen your relationship, avoid the mistakes that lead to emotional failure, and create a healthy and balanced love life. Click now and join us to start transforming your relationship in a deep and meaningful way.